Welcome back to another episode of the Oner Podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Kramer England.
And this week we are talking about David Robert Mitchell's new movie, The End of Oak Street.
The End of Oak Street at the end of summer.
At the end of summer. And it's a good old throwback to summer blockbusters of yore. If there's one word that encapsulates this movie, it's throwback.
Yes, that's a good word.
Or reference.
Reference is a good one. Yeah.
Or referential, maybe.
Yeah.
Spielbergian.
Spielbergian. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, listen. I watched your first thoughts.
Okay.
You and I had different theater experiences.
Yes.
This is the spoiler version of the show. If you're
just
tuning into our show for the first time, if you want our spoiler-free thoughts, those are on the channel right now. In our first thoughts edition of the show, where we just give you our general feelings. But yeah, I will say, what happened with me really quickly, in short, is my theater experience was kind of tainted and ruined because my theater collectively turned on the film at like the halfway point, and it was all downhill from there. It was just, there's nothing wrong with a group of people in a theater all laughing or like all like, making noise at the same time, if it's at the right moments, if it's when the movie wants them to. But if the theater collectively turns on the film and now just any moment that's supposed to land with sincerity or supposed to have some kind of emotional heft to it has the entire theater out loud laughing and vocally heckling the screen, it was really hard for me to focus because it was a sold out house. And I really wanted to enjoy this movie. I haven't seen Under the Silver Lake, so I can't be like, I'm such a big fan of David Robert Mitchell. I'm just such a big fan of the movie we talked about last week, It Follows. And that movie is good enough in my mind. And every time I watch it, I have such a good opinion of it that I was like, and I really liked the marketing for The End of Oak Street. So I was like, I really feel like I'm going to really like this movie. And so I was really annoyed at my theater, but here's what I got to say. First of all, obviously, I'm going to acknowledge everything that I say in this episode comes with a caveat of I got to go watch this movie again and just check. Right. Because I don't know. Because I'm aware that I'm having a different experience than most critics are having. I'm having a different experience than most audiences are having. I'm definitely like not agreeing with the general vibe. But like what I would say is even before my theater turned on it, I was not sure. Like this movie with It Follows, when I saw that movie in theaters, I knew within like the first 10 minutes that I was watching something that I really liked. It set a tone that I just was like, oh yeah, I'm totally into this. Like the music and the cinematography and the vibe and the production design, everything about it, I just was like, yeah, this is my kind of movie. And Oak Street had almost the exact opposite thing where like, here's what I'll say. David Robert Mitchell is very good from the two movies that I've seen, and I think you would agree with this, at telling us what he's doing stylistically really overtly and really quickly.
Yeah.
When the studio titles for this film come up, when it's like Warner Brothers, and we hear a score from Michael Giacchino that is unlike any movie score that I think I've heard in at least 25 years. Yeah. And it is a very like, well, first the opening notes kind of sound like a Marvel movie. It sort of sounds like
it did. Yeah,
totally sounds like the opening fanfare of a Marvel movie. But then when we like got into the film proper and we dropped into Oak Street and we had like this sort of family adventure 90s, and I just was like, oh, it's this movie? And I really genuinely didn't know that was the movie that he had made. The marketing to me didn't make me think that's what we were doing, that we were doing like Harry and the Hendersons. I didn't, but right away, similar to with It Follows, like you watch that movie and within the first 10 minutes, once that score comes in, you're like, oh, I'm watching like a John Carpenter 1980s horror film. Like, cool, awesome. Yeah. And this movie's like, you're watching a 1980s, early 1990s family adventure film,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
wacky family adventure film. And I was like, oh, totally. But again, I credit to David Robert Mitchell. He's telling you right at the jump, like what the vibe is, what the deal is. And I was kind of like, huh, interesting. And then there were like acting choices going on that were very big and broad and very like, and everything was a reference. And it was, it was the kids on the bikes, and it was Ewan McGregor is really hamming it up as this dad. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, before my theater even turned on it, I was kind of like, I'm not sure I like this as much. Like I just was like, I get what's happening. Like I
Yeah.
totally get that this is all intentional. I just, and again, we talk about this all the time on this channel. Judge the movie that was made, not the movie that you thought should have been
Yes.
made.
Yeah.
I think I clearly I did not expect the tone. And so I was trying to recalibrate and go like, just let the, as you said in your first thoughts, like go on the ride, let the movie happen as it was
Right.
designed to happen.
Right.
And then I sort of settled into the ride, and there's definitely stuff here that really like worked for me. Just on
Yeah.
a pure sitting in my seat in the theater, enjoying a sequence of fun, thrilling action adventure filmmaking. There
Yeah.
were definitely like several sequences where I was like, this is fun. That was fun. There were definitely like several surprises that happened that I
Yes.
didn't see coming that I thought
Yeah.
were really fun. I think overall, I just my general thoughts for this movie are, at the end of the day, and I know that my experience was tainted by my theater going thing.
Yeah.
I don't think this movie's about anything. And that's my problem with it, is like,
Yeah.
I'm all for sit back and let the ride happen. Just have fun. Turn your brain off and watch the dinosaurs. I'm all for it. I just feel like I love superhero movies, and my
Yeah.
favorite superhero movies have something to say.
Yeah.
And Jurassic Park has things it's trying to say. It has themes. And this movie, to me, when it was all over, I was like, yeah, there are, I guess, themes in there, but to me they're like the whole movie exists just to be a reference. And we talked about this last week with It Follows, where I was like, the difference between the way David Robert Mitchell is doing references in It Follows versus the way the Duffer Brothers do them in Stranger Things sometimes, where sometimes in Stranger Things it feels like a reference just for the sake of a reference.
Yes. Yeah.
And in It Follows, it felt like everything in there is thematically correct. It's like he's talking about the end of innocence, the end of adolescence, the end of an era. And he's doing that by referencing an era where he grew up in. And so the references made sense to me. And in this movie, it just felt like the whole movie was like, hey, remember movies like this? And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I do. Is the
Yeah.
movie about anything? It's like, I don't know. Did you see the dinosaur? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then like the movie was over, and I just was like, I don't know it's a very strange film that way, but I want to know your thoughts on it.
Everything that you said is very valid. I do agree. I think that I was expecting, especially after It Follows has a lot of deeper meaning. It has a lot of layers, has a lot of things that you can interpret in multiple ways. I was hoping, like kind of as I said in my first thoughts, I was hoping for something like that. But I don't think this really was that at all. It had almost a lot of ideas that it was kind of giving you, but it never paid off, and it never really went anywhere. And it was just kind of there, kind of as you were saying, like just kind of as a reference rather than any sort of deep meaning to the movie. So it was interesting in that way. Um, but I mean, it is from the marketing. My take on the marketing is that this is going to be a fun family adventure movie. So I was expecting that. I went with my two sons, and I was just wanting to have a good time and to have fun. And if I would have gotten a deeper meaning, I would have been really happy. But I got the fun part, so I was happy. And I enjoyed. I think there's a lot of really thrilling sequences, and it does subvert some expectations in many ways because it has this Spielbergian quality, and it but it's almost like intentional. Like the score is almost upbeat and really exciting, but then there's all these horrific things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like like all certain people getting killed, and certain things happening, and it's like, wow, this is like feels like a family adventure, but then you're really going hard, and then the ending happens, and it kind of there's a really surprising thing that happens, and then the ending happens, and it's like, oh, so you didn't go all in on that. You're kind of pulling back and doing like a happy ending, but is a happy ending earned? And is it like, was that
A happy ending for like 5 people.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. So it was like it was interesting in the ending the way that they went, but as we have also talked about on this podcast, if you can make a movie entertaining, I will forgive a whole lot. And luckily, I was prepared to forgive a whole lot, because that was the main thing I wanted, was to have fun and to like be entertained. And this movie did that. So I really enjoyed it, but it's prevented from being a great film because of the reasons that you talked about. And
Yeah.
those are the reasons that I picked up on as well. Cause it's like, oh, okay, you're putting something out there, but you never really, it's not really set up and it's not really paid off. It's just kind of there. So
it feels, the word that I keep thinking of is underwritten. And
Mhm.
I rarely say,
Yeah.
I rarely, like when people say they feel like something is underwritten, I usually don't really know what they mean. And watching this movie, I'm like, oh, this is what I think underwritten is like, this
Mhm.
feels kind of like a sketch of an idea. It's
Mhm.
like the movie is the premise. I sort of said this in my first thoughts too, that it's like, if you've seen the trailer, you get the gist. A family and their entire neighborhood somehow get transported back in time to dinosaur times, and now
Yeah.
their whole neighborhood has dinosaurs running loose in it. And that's what you get from the trailer, from the marketing.
Yeah. Mhm.
But then that's like that's the movie. Like the movie's just sort of like, okay, hey, here's Oak Street. All these people are neighbors. Here's all the kids. It's like the son's got these bullies that are after him. He's also got a crush on the new neighbor girl, but we got to do all the little tropes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The parents are having some discord in their marriage because we got to lean into those Spielberg
Mhm.
trouble in the household tropes, and then they get transported back in time somehow, and then it's just sort of like, all right, now for the remainder of the runtime, it's just like, hey, dinosaurs are in the neighborhood, and we got to try to not get eaten by the dinosaurs for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And it just sort of felt like David Robert Mitchell going through the beats of like almost filling out the runtime of like, I guess another sequence could go here. I guess maybe this person goes outside to get this thing, and a dinosaur shows up, and they gotta like run from it. And it just felt like kind of like vamping until the end of the movie. It was just like, I guess, another dinosaur sequence. Like, it's like, yeah, that's what the movie is. But I just was like, plot wise, like, is anything else going to happen? Are the neighbors going to come together and try to collaborate in some way? Are they going to are they going to put their heads together to try to figure out what happened to them and how to, or is it just this one family that we're focusing on? And I like I I even feel like the thing that you brought up, the different tones going on, that we've got this
Mhm.
sort of this score from Michael Giacchino that's very like upbeat, family friendly, family adventure film from the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
But then yeah, we go back in time and it gets pretty hardcore with these dino deaths, to the point where like I was honestly like, is this movie rated R? And it's
Yeah.
not. And
No.
I think it's more violent overtly than almost anything you ever see in any of the Jurassic films.
Oh yeah, yeah. And my son was like, "I'm really surprised that wasn't rated R." I
Yeah,
was like, "Yeah, it's true.
we
That's yeah,
definitely got like a flavor of the David Robert Mitchell that we get in It Follows. We got like some of
yeah,
that gore and some of that, body horror and stuff.
yeah,
But but again, if there's something that he's trying to say with doing that, with the sort of mesh of the two styles, I'm not getting it yet.
I know,
I'm
and that's
yeah,
hard too, because if he is trying, and I've said this, I said this in my first thoughts. I don't know if there's a deeper meaning. If I'm missing it, please, someone in the comments
right.
tell us, because I would love to know. Like, oh yeah, I would love to have it reframed, but I don't see what he is trying to say. Like, it just seems like, okay, yeah, the suburban life isn't all it's cracked up to be. Is kind of one of the things that's in this movie, and it follows, like, oh,
Sure.
there's problem, but I'm like, that's not really anything.
I just feel like
There's not much there, so
it's
what else is
execute
it?
yeah, and I just feel like it's executed so much stronger and it follows.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
just feel like the sense of dread and what comes with the loss of innocence and the
yeah,
and growing
yeah.
up and the loss of the idyllic idea of the suburbs and the neighborhood.
Mhm.
That's all so much more palpable in that film. And if anything, that thing you just said of like, if there's something there and I'm missing it, please help me so I can reframe it.
Yeah, yeah.
This film almost made me reframe It Follows in a way that I don't want to reframe It Follows, where it made me go like, was I reading too much into It Follows? Is It
Right.
Follows just a film where he was just doing references to movies that he likes and I put a bunch of extra meaning on top of it and it's not
Mhm,
actually there? And
mhm.
is David Robert Mitchell just a guy who's like, I just like making movies that look like and sound like the movies I watched when I was growing up? And
Yeah.
is it that deep? Is it just
Right,
I don't know, you know?
right.
And so and again, it's like just because he did a film that maybe had a lot of layers and meaning and different ways to look at it before doesn't mean that's what he has to do going forward. Like
No.
he doesn't have to always be writing screenplays that are 10 and 12 and 20 layers deep.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's sort of like, like when M. Night Shyamalan first came on the scene, and after the first few films, people started to just have a certain expectation of like
Yeah.
what an M. Night Shyamalan movie looks like, what the experience should be like. So everyone was watching, looking for the tells of what the twist might be and looking for the deeper meanings and the
Mhm.
themes. And if they were able to guess the twist before it happened, they would say, bad twist this time. I guessed it before.
Right,
But
right.
but he had sort of put himself in a corner as a writer director that like people had an expectation of him. And David Robert Mitchell's only got 3 movies, but it seems like even in a lot of the discourse I've seen about this movie that because it took it's been a while since his
Yeah,
last film
yeah.
and and Under the Silver Lake did not do well critically or commercially.
Mm-mm.
And so this movie kind of felt like if you're gonna make a comeback after It Follows, it's got to be this one. And I do think that this is going to do well enough to get him another movie. It's
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
well with
Oh,
critics,
yeah.
it's doing well with audiences. But I think a lot of people had an expectation of like, cool, all right, we get the premise, family gets transported back in time, dinosaurs, fun. But what's David gonna bring to it? What's the sauce? And that's I just sort of sat there like, oh, is it just this? And I don't know. I think I just the movie ended and I was again, it's like it's not that he owes me anything more than what was
Yeah,
promised by the
yeah.
marketing. It's just that I think I thought of him as a filmmaker who wanted to make films that had more to say than just like, you guys want
Yeah.
to have some fun, which maybe that's on me. Like maybe there's nothing wrong with, hey, you guys want to have some fun?
Well,
Like,
yeah, it's interesting. I think about Guillermo del Toro, who
yeah,
made Pacific Rim, and Pacific Rim is so dumb
yeah,
in the sense of like it's just dumb fun, and that's what
yeah,
he wanted to do. Um, he made some really interesting monsters in that, and I don't know, I still don't love that movie, but
it
it's
is
kind of a
such a
similar.
dumb movie,
It is,
but
but
has
that's
some,
also like it's
yeah,
dumb because that's all he wanted to do.
yeah.
But then I think
He's
about like,
playing with toys,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
And like,
yeah,
awesome. I'm glad you got to do that and you succeeded in what you wanted to do. It just was that, it was that type of movie. But then you look at like, you look at Christopher Nolan when he makes a superhero movie, he still adds his mark on it. And it is a fun movie if you just want to watch it as a fun movie, but it has really interesting themes and it has really interesting ways that it takes the movie, right?
yeah.
And this just seemed, yeah, I don't, it's a little hard to um Yeah, I wasn't what I was expecting from him either. I was expecting to have, even if it's a little bit more to say, I was expecting a little bit more of a theme and a little bit more of something like, yes, this was really fun, but also this storyline was really intriguing, and it really made the movie even better. And we didn't get that.
Because even the clashing tone of like the sort of broad acting style and the
Yeah.
80s family adventure film mixed with like the harsh brutal violence of that violence, rather than being something that he's trying to say or like a theme, it almost just seemed like Jurassic Park fan service. It just kind of seemed like, hey, you guys have always kind of wanted to see something a little more hardcore from the
Mhm.
dinosaur genre. It almost just seemed like that. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like I'm gonna give you guys something that I know everybody's been waiting for, which is like something a little more brutal from the dinosaur subgenre.
Right. Right.
And which again, fine and totally entertaining. I just yeah, I think I spent a lot of the movie looking for like
Yeah.
where's the depth, and I'm not sure if it's there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't think it's there. Now, you should see this movie again though,
yeah,
because now I think your frame is in line. You know what the movie is, and I think you can just enjoy the ride because at the very least, I mean, it is fun. That going back to the themes, I think the other problem, he had too many of them. He had too many themes that were there but not really so like, the I love the juxtaposition of having a idyllic suburban life and then having this crazy thing happen that is really horrific. But then he also brings in the religion aspect that's there for a little bit and then it's gone.
yeah, I
And I'm
completely
like,
forgot that that even happened.
yeah, I was like, what are you trying to say? Because, like, for 20 minutes of the movie or 15 minutes of the movie, he talks about, like, well, God's not going to let this happen. And then he's like, well, I choose to believe that. And then it's gone. They don't talk about it again. And I'm like,
This
okay,
is what I
what?
mean by underwritten, because I think
Yeah,
I saw the beginnings of a lot of these ideas,
yeah, yeah,
but they just kind of seemed like they were just sort of there as placeholders, and they never got fleshed out,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And they either needed to be like cut from the screenplay or they needed to be more fully realized.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know.
And that, because, yeah, if you bring in religion, she's the one who's like, oh, you go to church only on Christmas, and now you're telling us about that. Like, okay, then you can have a faith crisis story type of thing, which I don't think would fit well with this movie, but that's at least something, that could go in. But then when you just abandon it, it does feel underwritten.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about the stuff that works.
Yeah, let's do it.
Highest highs. What were some of your favorite things? Because yeah, I agree. Obviously people are having a good time at this movie. Obviously, there's fun stuff. So, what were some of
Yeah.
your favorite things here?
I think my favorite things, uh, this movie was exciting.
Yeah,
Like it was an entertaining movie. So far we haven't talked about spoilers. So now I guess this is the real spoiler warning.
yeah,
Like this is from now on we're actually going to talk about spoilers. But like when the dinosaurs do show up and they you know, start like they have to run away. Every sequence was very intriguing and every
mhm,
sequence was very entertaining. Like the
yeah,
opening sequence where they split up, they see the geyser and they're like, no, this is like really hot water. Like what's going on? And you understand why they split up. And she finds her neighbor dead in her house and she
mhm,
gets the shotgun, right? And then he sees something and the shadow comes up and you're like, what is that? And then he sees the raptor and he starts getting chased by the raptor. And then they meet up and she shoots it and they're running, right? And you have this great oneer of
mhm,
like the family getting into the car. And then they're like, everybody get inside. And the neighbor gets totally eaten by the raptor. Like, and then they have to get the kids to open the door. Like
mhm.
that whole sequence was like, this is awesome. I'm like so into this because that is like that's the transition scene into the second act. Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is where they're on their journey, and it's so well done. Like such a
yeah,
great sequence in just the pacing and like upping the ante every time. It's just like a little bit more and a little bit scarier, and then you get into it. And it's like it was so masterfully done, that sequence and the build up before that, which is my other thing. the buildup is setting up something that I wanted more of, but it was a great setup. It's not too quick. Like little things, the tree in the backyard comes in, the giant pile of poop comes in, and it's kind of like, okay, there's these things that are setting up.
I did like that they didn't just go straight to wormhole into the past.
Yeah.
And that they had little things like that before. But I also going back to the underwritten thing, it is tough when it's like, oh, there's this plant that appeared in her neighbor's backyard. So she takes a picture, goes to the library, and is like, hey, do you know what this is? And the librarian's like, well, that looks like this plant species that was extinct 200 million. And it just was okay, cool. And it's
and it was like, oh, thank goodness you saw the librarian.
Yeah, and it also it's just the scene from which Jurassic Park does it better, where Laura Dern's in the car and she's like, Alan, this species of plant hasn't been around. And then he turns her, and it's like it all just works so much better in that sequence. But this movie's they're doing the same things that Jurassic Park does. Like they're doing the giant pile of dino poop, and they're doing the prehistoric plant. But I felt like it was actually it just felt like a thing where I was like, yeah, you're because the big question going into this movie, I think for a lot of people is like, how are you going to differentiate yourself from the king of dinosaur films, which is Jurassic Park, and then also just the king franchise of dinosaur films, which is the Jurassic franchise. Yeah. And David Robert Mitchell's answer seemed to be, I'm going to literally lean into Spielberg as hard as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But then it's like to actually do the same kind of visual gags as that movie, and in a way that wasn't even necessarily like wink, wink. It was just like, we're just doing the same thing, but worse. I don't know. I kind of think that it's more interesting if they just zap there one night, if it's just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
To me, it's like, just get there, just go like idyllic suburb, everything's great, and boom, the whole neighborhood just gets hit with, but the build up to it is like, something's coming. We've all watched the trailer. We already know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Again, going back to if It Follows, I kind of like that movie just gets into it, just is like, boom, I don't know.
No, it's true. It's true. I think it, it was, I think the fact that I knew it was coming though, kind of made it fun. Okay, that's it. Cause I was interested, there still is some mystery here.
Yeah.
Of what, now we know, but the mystery of the wormhole is because before you get to the movie, you don't know what's happening.
Right.
And that does at least help with there's big lights. So when lights are coming on, when lights show up, something's happening.
Sure.
Whatever it is, so it does at least serve that purpose.
Right. So we're in highest highs. We'll get to lowest lows. I keep taking us into a negative territory.
No, you're fine.
I agree with you. Lots of good dino sequences. Again, this is something that you can kind of get out of pretty much any Jurassic film. If all you're looking for is a few good sequences where people get chased by a dinosaur, that exists in most, if not all of the Jurassic movies, even the really bad ones. There will be a few sequences, and this movie definitely has them. You mentioned that opening one with the cool oneer and the banging on the door. There's another oneer involving a T-Rex later on that I thought was really, really fun. And that whole I love that T-Rex sequence where they're going down the neighborhood with the neighbor girl with them, and they're all talking, and in the background the T-Rex is coming up behind them slowly. I thought that sequence was really fun. I kind of liked this sequence with the turtles in the road and the Spinosaurus that knocks them through the house. There were several fun sequences, and I also think we gotta mention the big white snake. Big white snake is probably the newest idea here in terms of the dinosaur subgenre. And Big White Snake is a fun scene.
The Big White Snake is a fun scene.
Did you not like Big White Snake scene?
That I liked it. It was fun.
Yeah.
You take it out of the movie does not change.
Yeah, of course not.
That's in my lowest lows.
Oh, sure.
Just because
That's how I feel about the whole movie, though. I feel like the whole movie is just is inconsequential. I feel like nothing matters. Yeah.
That's the big, and that was the biggest one to me, because I
Yeah.
was like, this is really pointless. Also, when the bully comes over and beats up the kid, that's also
100%.
what's
The
the
whole
point?
the
What's the
whole
point of
bully,
that?
that's lowest lows stuff. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we're getting into too many
yeah,
lows.
I know. That's my point is I'm like, for my highs, I just wrote down a few cool dino scenes.
Yeah,
Like I talked about the same stuff you talked about, and I said Anne Hathaway. Uh,
yeah,
I got to give it
awesome.
up for Anne Hathaway. She's having a heck of a year, and
Really
I feel like weirdly this might be her strongest performance that I've seen this year in a very stacked year for. Like I might like as mixed as I am on this movie. I might like her more in this than I did in Odyssey. And that's
interesting,
not to disparage her work in the Odyssey at
right?
all. I just feel like she gets to flex a little bit more in this
Yeah,
movie,
well, yeah.
you know?
I think she was better in the Odyssey,
Yeah.
but she was awesome in this movie as well. And yes, like some great choices of movies for this year.
Yeah.
And she also has another one coming out. But
Yep.
she did an awesome. She really does carry this movie, because Ewan McGregor. I love Ewan McGregor, and I thought he did a good job in this one. But she is the one who really carries the movie
Yeah.
and brings kind of the emotion and brings the whole purpose to it. So she really did a great job with this movie, for
Yeah.
sure. Her performance.
I'm out of highest highs. So what else do you have? Because
That,
that's all I have. It's
that's
like,
it's funny
yeah,
because like I mean, I think everybody should go see this movie in the
yeah,
theater. I think it's
yeah,
fun enough. Just make sure your expectations are in the right place. Just
sure.
know that this is not going to be a ton of deep stuff, or even a bigger meaning, like, but
Not
it's
gonna,
just a fun time.
yeah, you're not going to be having like a really heady conversation on the way home.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
And
not gonna be going like, did you think that like this person was taught,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And so go in and have that fun time. And I don't like, we can go through all the sequences that were fun, because every sequence was fun. It
Mhm.
had something in it that was fun. And that is really, really great.
It
So
just kind of felt like though, once they go back in time, it was just a series of sequences. Like
yes,
it just was, that's what I mean is it was just, it felt like they just were filling out the runtime of
yes.
let's just kill time until this family makes it back to
Yeah,
1982.
yeah,
And they do eventually make it back to 1982 at the end of the movie. That's
they do.
another thing. I mean, I get in.
Yeah, well, let's get into the lowest
Yeah.
lows,
Okay.
because there's, as far as shocks,
Hmm.
that is kind of a highest high, but we'll get to the shock in
Yes.
after the lowest lows. I'm
And we
sure you know
both,
what I'm talking
of
about.
course, of course.
But
Yeah.
so for the lowest lows, I we've talked about a lot of it. All the stuff
Mhm.
is the stuff that we talked about kind of in the opening is are most of my lowest lows. The biggest thing that I want to talk about is, why was this movie set in the 80s?
Because
And
Spielberg.
yes,
That's
and
what I'm
I
saying is there's no reason for any of it. It's
yes,
just remember
yeah.
and yeah.
And that's like, I this did not ruin the movie for me at all, because I'm like, okay, I loved those movies. I love Goonies. I love all the, this is very referential to those, and it does it really well. So I love this movie, and I'm glad that you did it well and you didn't just totally rip off everything. It has at least something that's a little bit unique to this movie, right? It's a neighborhood. So that's good enough. But I feel like the 80s movies that Spielberg and Richard Donner for the Goonies and all those that they were making, they weren't referencing anything. These are older men who were making movies about, these were older filmmakers who were making movies about young kids that us young kids could relate to. And that became a huge part of our childhood, obviously, because they're still making movies about it. So why don't you do that with 2026? Why don't you
Yeah.
make it set in 2026 and like give the kids now something to reference? Everyone, I feel like, is so scared to do that because of cell phones. But the problem with this movie and cell phones is that cell phones don't play a part at all in this movie.
Right.
They wouldn't, because if you go back in time, you have nothing. Your cell
There's no
phone is nothing.
Wi-Fi.
There's nothing.
Right.
So you can't do anything with it. So why wouldn't you just set it in the present, and you still have the same movie, and then you're making something that feels Spielbergian but new because it's set in today's times. And I really I want that for my kids, because I had
that your kids should just be watching movies that are like, hey, this movie's about what movies were like when I was a kid. And it's
I want them to, because I grew up and oh yeah, we had stuff like that, like Goonies. Yeah, I remember these certain things, blah 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 blah. Right.
We had Spider-Man when we were kids. We grew up with Spider-Man. They have Spider-Man too, and Spider-Man Brand New Day isn't like, hey, remember Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Spider-Man Brand New Day is just another Spider-Man movie, and it's a continuation of it. Like they get to have their own experience with the character. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I want my kids to have a movie that has kids in it, and they're like, yeah, when they grow up, they can be like, oh yeah, this was a lot like what it was like growing up with me, because times are going to change. I want filmmakers to be daring enough to try and relate to kids today, because yes, times are different. Growing up in the 90s like we did is way different than it is now. But 20 years from now is going to be way different than now. There'll be new things. There'll be other things. Get kids interested in this time period. And I think kids will like this. I think it will. I think they would get more invested if it was their time period.
I'm going to say something that might wind up in the future ruining my career in show business. And that is that I don't think there's anyone more responsible for this era of looking back and remember when and just references for the sake of references in filmmaking than J.J. Abrams. And he's one of the producers on this film.
Well, yeah.
And it has become his stamp that he makes movies that his also the innovation of the mystery box thing of you don't need to know why. Asking the question why is fun. And it's the question why is fun, but it's also fun when the filmmaker has an answer, whether or not they're going to tell me that answer.
Yeah.
The idea that they're building a world that knows. So J.J. Abrams is totally, I can see him working with David Robert Mitchell and being like, they get zapped back in time. How does that happen? Somehow. How does Palpatine return? Somehow. And it's a wormhole sends them back. Where's the wormhole come from? Who cares? And it's in Jurassic Park, we at least have an answer. Yeah. They find the little fossilized mosquito, and I love it. We drill in there and we get dino DNA out of ancient mosquitoes. That's amazing. That's that's incredible. That's the science fiction aspect of it. But J.J. Abrams, whether it's what's that movie? The
8 millimeter.
8 millimeter or no? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. No, it's not called it. What is
8 millimeter? Is a Super 8.
Super
8 millimeter, I think, is a Nicolas Cage movie.
I got mixed up. Yeah, Super 8. Yep, that's it.
Super 8 or Star Wars. Either one of his Star Wars is. They're all just reference movies. As much as I liked The Force Awakens when I watched it in theaters, that movie has not aged very well. Where every time I go back to it, I'm like, this movie is just a bunch of hey guys, remember Star Wars? And it's how about make a movie, dude? Make your own Star Wars movie. Don't that movie worked for me because it felt like remember Star Wars. So when I watched it in theaters, I was like, yeah, I remember Star Wars. And nobody nailed the criticism of this more than, South Park pegged it all the way back in 2016 by doing member berries and being like, Hollywood is nothing but member berries now.
Member berries, yeah.
It's just member berries going, remember the Millennium Falcon? Remember? And that's what, listen, it's not that filmmakers when we were growing up weren't referencing things. Spielberg was referencing things when he made Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was referencing a certain kind of movie.
Exactly.
And George Lucas was referencing, samurai films and Westerns when he made A New Hope. And filmmakers always do references. It's just that the reference can't be the movie. It's the reference has to be an element of the movie stylistically, but the movie has to have its own thing going on.
Yeah.
Like I should care about that movie's characters. And all of the characters in this movie just feel like they're the whole movie is just like, even the bullies, it's like the bullies are like references to bullies, and the annoyed neighbor is a reference to an annoyed neighbor archetype, and Ewan McGregor is playing this like reference to an 80s dad, and I just didn't feel like the characters felt like real people who deserved to exist in their own movie. And I agree with you that it's like, I wish that the kids who this movie is, who are going to grow up with this movie, had characters that felt like they belonged to this film, and they weren't just like archetypes drawn up from film archives, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you on that. I don't know why it's set
Yeah.
in
1982.
I wrote underwritten in there as my lows. I wrote, lack of themes or meaning. I've already talked about all of that, where it's just like, this movie just has no meaning. It's just a sequence of, but yeah, I also just want to talk a little bit about the bully storyline and the crush storyline.
Yes.
Because these are things that happened in these movies. In the Goonies, there's the crush storyline with like Josh Brolin and Andy and Andy, you Goonie. Like there's always something going on with like with in E.T. there's little elements of this kind of thing, and there's always like bully storylines. It's very like Karate Kid and stuff like that. But in this movie, there's such like tacked on nothings. It's just the movie's just like, hey, here's some bullies on bikes, and it's like they're gonna come back at some point. But at the point of the movie that they come back, like when the bullies show back up and the bully's little brother was like, who cares anymore? I was like, yeah, honestly, bully, how do you care about this right now?
Yeah.
How are you concerned with like beating up this kid when it seems like your parents got eaten by dinosaurs? And like half the neighborhood has been eaten by dinosaurs.
And you could take it out and it doesn't really affect the movie all that much.
And even having like this neighbor that he has a crush on, they just do so little with it. And then the twist that it's like, ooh, but the neighbor has a crush on the sister, and the sister and the neighbor like each other. And I'm like, cool. And it's so thin. It is.
Yeah. It's very thin.
It's just so like there for the sake of being there. This movie just feels like a bunch of events that just happen. And it's like, and then this happens and it's like, okay, yeah, sure. I guess.
I mean, it just, honestly, you make it about like, it has these things. Okay, we talked about the religion. If you want to make it about taking chances because you might not have the time, right? Like that's the daughter. That's kind of her story. She is still closeted. Like, okay, then make it about that, taking chances. But it's not like that's not what they're saying. That's not the theme. And it really doesn't go anywhere because the son's just kind of like, oh, okay. Like they don't talk about it. Like and also the daughter and the neighbor, like, yeah, I definitely got the feeling like, oh yeah, they like each other. But it like, when? Like what?
Right.
When did that happen? You guys have been here for like a day. Like
they just looked at each other in one scene and went like, and then the movie was like, they like each other. And I was like, okay, whatever.
It was like, it was very unearned. There's a lot of things that are kind of unearned or unset up, not set up. So yeah.
And I like, I remember one time I was mad at a review for Horizon because this person that I was watching this podcast like ours, where this guy was like, this movie's just a bunch of things that happen. He was like, it's just a bunch of like sequences that happen.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, that's what a movie is. And I got all mad. And I just said that. I was like, but the thing is that person was saying like, they don't seem to have any connective tissue. They don't seem to be heading anywhere. And I was like, maybe they're all heading to the town Horizon that everyone keeps talking about in the whole movie. And maybe because it's a 4-movie, anyway, whatever.
Horizon is supposed to be multiple movies. So that makes sense. Like this is supposed to be a contained film.
This is one movie. And it really was just like, the premise is this thing happens to this neighborhood. Whoa, crazy. But then it's like, now what? And it just felt like the characters were just surviving until it was over. And in that span of time, stuff was just happening. It was just like, now this happens. Now the neighbor's on his roof and he gets eaten by pterodactyls. And it's like, sure.
Yeah.
It's like, he's just like, okay. It's like, like, I don't think he has to be out there. I don't think he has to be out on his roof shooting at pterodactyls.
Well, and that was the other thing about the neighbor.
Yeah.
Kind of a wasted death, because I was hoping that you have a neighbor who's rude, and Anne Hathaway ultimately saves his life. But like, they had a reconciliation before that where he's like, listen, where Ewan McGregor's like, listen, I'll help you clean up the poop. And he's like, thank you. Like, you could tell he's going through something, but like, okay, what, can you have it to where they don't have that reconciliation, but she still chooses to save him because she can, right? Like, that's something else that, like, oh, you could have done it, and it's kind of set up, but it's not.
So that's a really good point that you bring up. That's another lowest low that I had, is there's a ton of setups in this film that go nowhere. And maybe it's just my movie watcher, cinephile, screenwriter brain, but it's like, when they open up the door to the basement, she goes, Dad, the basement's flooded. That's important for one reason. For one thing, it ruins Anne Hathaway's book that she's writing. And that's sad for her character, that she's lost all of this work that she's put into it. But the second you show me in this movie that flooded basement, I'm immediately like, oh, we're going to do like a crazy, like, prehistoric.
That's what I said to my son, and it didn't happen.
Of course. And it's like, if the white snake thing comes out of anywhere, it should come out of the flooded basement. Like, that's where that thing should be. And like, there should be a reason why someone has to go down to the basement. There's something they've got to get for some reason. And we've already set up that the basement is flooded. And in this world, you do not want to go into murky water. Like, and like, that, like, immediately I was like, that's a sequence. Obviously, that's a sequence. Whether it's the crocodiles, whether it's whatever is in there, like, there's gotta be some freaky dinosaur thing in the basement water. And and it never goes anywhere. And the neighbor was another thing where I was like, obviously we're gonna do something with this neighbor. And it felt so like nothing. It was just like they watched through a window as he just sort of gets eaten by pterodactyls because he's being dumb on his roof. And I was like, okay, like, but I was kind of like, if you're gonna kill that guy, I kind of want a better death for him, because it was a little hard to see. And it was kind of brutal. Like, we do sort of see him get like pulled to pieces by these pterodactyls, which I was kind of like, all right, that's kind of fun. But even in this sequence, there was a thing that didn't pay off. Their whole house starts to shake, and they go to the window, and we see just fur just moving past the window. And I think it was like a brontosaurus or something.
Yeah, I think it was those brontosaurus ones
that we see later on getting it on. But we don't actually get to see what it is. And that's another thing where it's like, if you're going to set it up with like, looking through this window, we just see this mound of fur moving past. You got to move me to the next window and reveal what it is, whether it's like a giant woolly mammoth or whether it's,
I thought it was going to be,
but just having it like not showing me, like just being like, that was just a big thing out there. And that's why this movie just sort of has the feeling of like meandering. Like, it's just sort of like, it's almost happening more like it would happen in real life, where like, just because something's set up by someone looking through a window doesn't mean it needs to pay off when they look through the other window. But this is a movie, and all it exists to do is be entertaining. So I am expecting those setups to have payoffs. And
there were a lot of not payoffs. I think the other thing is the dumb decisions. There's a lot of dumb decisions made by the characters that people just wouldn't make. So like the son going out to try and find his dog. Like, okay,
kid, your dog is dead. First of all, the dog is dead movie. Okay. And I'm sorry, but you wrote it that way. You could have written it where they got the dog inside earlier on and saved the dog. You wrote it as the dog is missing in Dinosaur Land. The dog's dead. Second of all, this, I I hated this kid. So it's not just dumb decisions, it's unlikable characters for me. For
Okay.
me, it was like there's nobody in this. The only person in the movie I like is Anne Hathaway. I even wrote down like the acting was grating for me from Ewan McGregor, from the daughter, from the kid. I
Okay.
thought this kid was. I don't like to rag on young actors, but I was just like, this kid drove me nuts. And also, then the character was written to be obnoxiously stupid. And
yeah.
Yep. Which, there was some of that in It Follows, where I talked about how, like, the third act finale of It Follows bothers me because the kids are so dumb. And David Robert Mitchell was like, well, they're supposed to be dumb. They're kids. And I guess he did that in this movie too. But I'm like, yeah, I know. And like, the little girl turns the light on in a Jurassic Park and he has to go like, turn the light off. I get it. Kids are dumb.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. There's a line. Now this kid is 13. My son is 13. And I was like, I'm pretty sure my son wouldn't do that. So like, yeah.
Just run out into the prehistoric jungle because he saw his dog and he's going to take his little makeshift bow and arrow with him.
Yeah.
They're treating the kid like he's 8 and not 13.
Yeah. That's very, very true.
And but that's another thing I wrote down is just lots of bad decisions from characters, which is it's a trope in movies like this. And then the only other thing I had written down is I talked about it earlier a little bit, but I'm just not sure the overall aesthetic choice here works for me as a vibe as much as it does in It Follows. Like I'm just like so into the vibe of like this, like the John Carpenter vibe. And in this movie, I'm like, as much as I love Michael Giacchino and as much as I know that he understood the assignment and he delivered on the assignment.
Yeah.
Like, I know that David Robert Mitchell went to him and said, I want you to write me a score that sounds like it was written for an 80s and 90s like family adventure film. And he understood the assignment and he wrote that score. I just don't know if I vibe with it as much.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But he did I think he did what he was asked of him. Yeah, that's all I have for lowest lows. So
yeah. Shocks. So we know the big one, and my theater ruined this for me, but I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. So this is my highest high. Yeah. But it's also, this is probably one of the highest highs, but it's also going to go into one of the lowest lows as well. Yeah. But the scene, and I guess it's not a T-Rex. I think it's an Allosaurus or something, but we'll call it a T-Rex because it's easier. The T-Rex is coming after him, and it's like, it is a great sequence. It's a great wonder. They're trying to get away from it. And Anne Hathaway is shooting it. It comes after her, and it's got her on this porch, and it can't really get to her. And then Ewan McGregor comes and smacks its, ankle or whatever, and then it smacks it in the head, which it's already been kind of like. I was like, oh,
he's got a sledgehammer that he's hitting this dinosaur with. Yeah.
And I was like, dude, keep going after the dinosaur. Keep going after it. But he doesn't. He goes to check on his wife. He gets his leg caught. This is in the trailer. Yeah. You see that he gets his leg caught and he gets pulled up, and then he gets slammed down and his leg is off. His leg was taken. And I'm still shocked by this scene, first of all, because his leg is off and you see it for a few seconds, and then he gets eaten by the dinosaur. Yeah. And there's no coming back from that. It's like
full on lawyer on the toilet seat in Jurassic Park 1, just devoured.
Yeah. And I've got like my jaw was dropped. My kids were like, what? And I too was like, they can't, there's no way they're bringing him back, at least not right now. And that, first of all, amazing sequence, done really, really well. And after, for me, Anne Hathaway's performance was like, wow, that was like, and the kids too. And then the sequence after was, I thought, really well done, really, really well, because it really did bring the emotion, and it made me like tear up a little bit. Like, wow, that was horrible. Like, what a horrible thing that these kids had to see. And I think it was done really, really well. Now, I'm imagining you did not have that experience in your theater.
Well, my theater was already, as we talked about, that they had already turned on the film. And when Ewan McGregor came up and hit the dinosaur in the ankle with a sledgehammer, I think everyone was okay with that.
Yeah.
But when he hit the giant T-Rex in the jaw with a sledgehammer, and he seemed to knock it out. Because this, and I will say, I don't know that I disagree with my theater on this. When this dinosaur went and fell over on its side and like got knocked out by getting hit in the jaw with a sledgehammer, I was like, I don't know, movie. I don't know if we're gonna have Dad come over and like knock this T-Rex out. Like I just was like, you're asking a lot of me here to say that Ewan McGregor as this corny goofball pizza delivery dad is gonna come over and like uppercut this T-Rex with a sledgehammer. And
it's been shot a few times. That's what I
for sure.
like.
But like the way that the scene plays out is that like he knocks it out.
Yeah,
he knocks it unconscious. Yeah. And I agree with you that it's like cool. If we're gonna do that, the next move is stand over its head and just go to town. Just start hammering this thing. Just start beating this thing in the skull until its skull is mush.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. He goes to check on his wife and then he gets eaten. And this was a total shock because in movies like this never happens.
No.
It's like if Alan Grant, like while helping the kids, like get back, like all of a sudden just got scooped up by a T-Rex and just bitten it. Like it's really shocking, but it follows the rules of this film, which is, and maybe this is kind of the thing that David Robert Mitchell was trying to do with this movie, is the movie is kind of chaotic in that it doesn't really obey any of the rules that you think a movie in this genre is supposed to.
Intentionally subverting expectations. Yeah,
totally. So it's like, it's going to show you the basement full of water and you think there's going to be a little water reptile in there, but no, the movie doesn't owe you that. It's going to set up all of these different things. It's going to show you the bullies and you think there's going to be a big sequence where the bullies come to like beat up the kid, but then they all get like scooped up by a bunch of different animals. And but like the ways that this movie would deal with most of its setups or its events are not what you think it would do. And that's how this went too, is it's like, you assume the family's going to find a way to make it. Because even the sequence, like it's where they're moving down the street and it's set up to be like, how are they going to get out of this one? And the answer is they don't. Dad gets eat. Like, but I'll say another thing about this sequence. While it was very shocking and I did like it, I was like, cool, that's a cool choice.
Yeah.
Even though my theater was heckling it.
Yeah.
This movie has a budget of about like $86 million, something like that.
Okay.
The effects the CGI is fine in this movie. It's certainly not like awe-inspiring. It's not, there's never any scenes where you're like, wow, and this was one, like him on the ground with this leg missing. I don't know if you looked too closely, but I was like, that looks really fake. Like it looked like really bad, underdone CGI to me. And
I think they were trying to avoid the R rating is my guess.
Totally.
Because it's like you see blood, but that it's like
it looked like a video game. And there's another thing with the dog later on where the dog comes in and saves the day with the kid, where the dog just looks really
looked CGI.
Yeah, it was but I agree. I like that Dad gets chomped down. I like how brutal that is, and I like that the family just has to deal with the fact that just happened.
Yes.
And if anything, I would say that the white snake scene that happens after this, if it serves any purpose thematically, it's that Anne Hathaway is like grieving, and as she's like stabbing it repeatedly, we're sort of seeing her just like exasperation and her, but I almost feel like that sequence would have been better earlier in the film.
I agree, but this, because it really doesn't.
And I think it should come out of the water because it could be
that at least is something
that maybe she goes down there to try to salvage what she can of her book, even though who knows, or they need something from the basement, and then that because we set up the snake earlier. It comes out of someone's pool, and it just pays off in a way that you're right, like. The sequence doesn't change anything. Ewan McGregor's still dead, but then so that's probably the biggest shock. And I would also say that like the biggest shock to me was like from the opening sequence when that music happened, I was like, oh, we're doing this. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty much like what you would think it is. It's
Yeah.
just, it's like, it's what you would think it was from the,
Yeah.
from there, it's like, it's a mad dash to the end of the film. And so we get to the ending here. And I feel like, I don't know about you, but the ending felt a little anticlimactic to me. It just felt,
and this is what I was going to talk about as far as this going into kind of a lowest low.
mm-hmm.
They spend the time killing Ewan McGregor,
Right,
and then they get through a wormhole. Great sequence again, really fun. They have to go through the house, and then the librarian shoots the alligator things, whatever they are, and they're
but again,
able
this is
to
just like,
barely get there.
it's just like another sequence.
It is.
It's not like more intense or more crazy. It's just like there's more dinosaurs in this house, and they got to get through those, and they get to this wormhole. But
and they get to the wormhole, and then they have 20 minutes. She uses the phone, and I was like, oh, she's gonna call in a pizza, and she does. So her husband gets saved, but then we find out in the end, like, oh, it was 2 years ago exactly that this thing happened, and then they interview the people, and they're like, oh, I thank goodness she called me. I got my stuff and got out of there, and it's like, thank goodness for those 5 people. Like, you referenced before.
For some, this is the other thing is like, okay, so the logic of this film, the way everything works is a giant wormhole transports their entire neighborhood. Like really, it feels like a 10 to 20, like 10 to 15 block circumference.
Yeah, I think it's about
It's very big. It's like a big swath of neighborhood, and we don't know why. There's just these wormholes that are popping up, and what they find is that back in time, there's still those wormholes are still showing up places, and the idea is that they could jump in it and go back to their time.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, this wormhole that they find drops them off in the pool of a woman who is comfortably outside of the radius of the wormhole that sends the neighborhood back in time. And it drops them off about 20 minutes before the inciting wormhole is set to hit. And it's just because. It's just like, luckily the wormhole doesn't shoot them to like 1996 or like, or like.
I thought that might happen.
I thought that might happen too, and I thought that would have been more interesting.
I think it would have actually. Yeah, it might.
I think it would have been more interesting that they get to go back to something, but like it would have been more interesting to me if, honestly, the more interesting thing to me would have been if they showed up in our present, and that answers the question of like, why 1982?
Right.
And it's like now they're like a family out of time. They don't have to deal with dinosaurs, but they have to deal with
the missing of their
They have to deal with the future still. There's still repercussions. But instead, this movie's like, nah, she gets dropped off right outside the circumference of the original wormhole 20 minutes before, just in time to call all of her favorite people in the neighborhood and her husband and save their lives. The end. And I'm like, it just feels like, okay, whatever.
I know it felt like there's a couple things. First of all, I guess the original ending was that Ewan McGregor did not get saved. Like, and I really would love to know what that ending was. But they decided to change it, which is kind of like, okay, if you have a movie that's just for fan thrills, it's probably the right decision. Honestly, this is the way that they ended it. I was like, okay, yeah, I think it could have been more effective if he didn't make it, but I get it. And I think it'll make people happy. And it does feel like, okay, it's time dilation, whatever. Okay, I get it. The other thing that I think is that like I wonder if they didn't want to deal with the Cloverfield paradox of it all, or the Cloverfield Lane part of it. Like because it is Bad Robot, it is J.J. Abrams. It's like, oh, is this another Cloverfield movie? And I guess it's not. But if there was sort of, like a time jump, if they came back to 2026, that might have been like, oh, this is a Cloverfield movie. But I also,
we don't know the answer to the question, where are these wormholes coming from? And the movie just seems content to be like, they just are, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. All right. Are. Yeah. So it was an interesting, I do think with the way that the movie turned out, I think it is the right way to end this film, to try and make the most money. And I'm not mad at it. I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I see where this is going. I knew immediately what was going to happen. It does seem like this is the other thing I was going to say. It does seem like almost like, is this really the ending though? Because it's so good of an end, like so much of a happy ending, that it makes me think like, was that real? Like, or is there something, is he trying to say something again, like we've been trying to figure out, like, oh, but like, did they actually get put into another portal or another dimension, and well, first of all, they obviously did, because their dad now, what happens to the new ones? There's a new set of family that's there, and they don't have their dad. So what's going to happen to those? What's going to happen to Anne Hathaway and
Right.
her kids? There's a lot of questions I have with this ending, but I guess you're not supposed to ask them.
That's yeah. See, like in the question of like, is this like, I just think I just kept wanting the movie to like do something more. And even all the way up to the end, they jump through this wormhole, they land in this woman's backyard, they ask what year it is, and I'm like ready for it. I'm like, oh, here it comes, like something. So, and she's just like, it's 1982, and they're like, oh, good, we have just enough time to like go make some calls and like and save everybody's lives. And it's like, okay, we saved everybody. The end. And I'm like, well, okay. And so it really was, by the end, it's like, I don't think there's anything deeper going on here. I think it is just our neighborhood temporarily went back to dinosaur times. Some crazy stuff went down. We somehow made it back in time to save everyone that we like's life, and the end.
Yep.
And that's fine. Yeah. That's fine, I guess. I just
yeah. I mean, again, hey, just have fun with the movie. It can still be fun.
Yeah. For the themes section, I literally just wrote down dinosaurs are scary.
I wrote down family is important.
Yeah. Sometimes marriage is hard, but if you watch your husband get eaten by a dinosaur, you might be like, actually, you know what? I like him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the other thing. Anne Hathaway wrote this book about her crumbling marriage, and she doesn't want to admit that it's her crumbling marriage. I mean, I guess you could also say that Ewan McGregor is in denial about everything that's going on with him, and that's just his character. And then the daughter is also in denial. She's closeted herself, but that also just doesn't ever pay off. Like a lot of the other things.
So. Setups with no payoffs. Like this, this is just a screenplay with a bunch of like things in it.
Yeah.
And it's all stuff that you're like, oh, what's that? Is that gonna? Oh no. Ooh, what's that? Are you gonna do? No. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when the movie ends, it's like, don't worry about it. We fixed it all. And it's like,
yeah.
Okay. All right. And so all you're really left with is like, there were a few sequences in there that were pretty fun, and Anne Hathaway sure seemed to be giving it her all.
Yep.
Yeah.
She did. Yeah.
Anyway, should we get into scores?
Let's do it.
Okay, that's the end of Oak Street. If you watch our channel, we give scores out of 10, 10 being the best. We give a score for the technical rating of the film, but just things on a nuts and bolts scale, the craft of the film, a score for the ending, a score for rewatchability, a score for cultural impact, and a score for our subjective thoughts. Kramer, what is your technical rating for the end of Oak Street?
My technical rating is a 7.5. I'm taking the points off for everything that we said, but I'm also giving it the 0.5 because it was entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that deserves a little extra in it, because that's hard to do. And I think the best thing that Robert David Mitchell has going for him is that, yeah, man, you can make an exciting movie, and that's good. Hopefully his next one will, I mean, whatever he wants to do, but if it can have a little bit of those deeper meanings, that'd be great.
Yeah, I gave it a 6.5. I'm giving it credit for everything that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Entertaining enough, fulfills the promise of its premise well enough. It's like, what more do you want? Other when with the premise being the family's got to run around the suburbs being chased by dinosaurs. That's all in there with some good sequences. I take the points off for going like, I think I think this guy is a better writer than that, or at least I
Right.
think he should be. I think that this script could have used a few more drafts. I think that we could have had some more of these thematic ideas pay off in a better way that would have made this a stronger film overall.
Yeah.
How about the ending?
The ending I gave a 6. It does feel like that's probably the way that they should have ended it for the movie that they have, but I really wonder, like, I kind of wonder what if, and I also wonder why such a happy ending. So it didn't feel completely earned, but good enough.
Yeah, I gave it a 4. This is my the ending I just to this movie, it just seemed like any other sequence in the film, and then it was this really quick wrap up that by the time I saw what had happened, it left me with more questions than
Yeah.
things that I felt like were like buttoned up and satisfied. I just was sort of like it just felt very like rushed and kind of
Yeah.
tacked on and just sort of like, there you go, the end of the movie, get out of here. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about rewatchability?
Rewatchability, I gave a 7 because it is exciting. I am worried that I might not like it as much with the questions that I have, but hopefully I can just kind of go along for the ride.
I gave this a 6 for now because I do need to see it again.
Mhm.
But if I feel the same way after I see it again, then it's probably going to go down to like a 3. It's going to be like a movie that I'm like, yeah, don't need to see that again. I think that's all there is to it. And if I want to watch a dinosaur movie, there are better ones.
Mhm.
But I will go check it out again
Yeah.
just to see if my theater ruined it for me. How about cultural impact?
Cultural impact, I'm giving a 6. It'll be interesting to see how it made, like, I can't remember, I think it made like 21 or 24 million dollars. It's being overshadowed by Spider-Man and the Odyssey, which is understandable. But the article I read said it'll be very interesting to see how the word of mouth is. Mostly positive, I'm hearing mostly positive things. But I also think because it came out in such a big year, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. So I'm a little bit on the lower end, but
Yeah, this year has been such a banger year for
yeah.
blockbusters. I have a hard time seeing this movie being like one of the movies that people reference about this year. I feel like this
Mhm.
movie is going to get lost in the shuffle. I have it at a 5 because it also could go either way. This movie could also like age really well
Yeah.
and build like a really like cult following of people who are like,
Yeah.
that movie's so cool. Because what this movie does have that I got to compliment it on is it's got like a very clear decision was made as far as the style of the
Yeah.
film,
Yeah.
and that's one thing you can say about David
Yeah.
Robert Mitchell is like so the people for the people who were into it and who had a great time with it, I think that this movie will continue to age well, but
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just not sure if it's gonna in a year this stacked. I'm not sure if it's gonna stand out long term. How about your subjective score?
My subjective score is a 7.5. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It gave me what I wanted.
yeah, I've got it at a 5. I know my theater kinda blew it for me,
Yeah.
but also I just was sort of like, "Man, I just this movie's just sort of like it's weird to me."
Yeah.
It's just sort of
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, that I guess that's what it is." It's,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give it another shot, and we'll see if that score goes up or down.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
let us know in the comments what you thought about the end of Oak Street. Did you have a great time? Like, share, comment, subscribe. There is a movie coming out called Coyote versus Acme
Yes.
that almost didn't happen and almost got killed by Warner Brothers, and now it's coming out. We're going to go see that eventually. But
Yes.
before we do, we're going to watch a movie that's probably the original live action mixed with cartoon film that's a great classic. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Haven't watched this in years. We
Yeah.
grew up on this movie. I'm really excited to step back into this world. So if you want to watch along with the show, that's what we're watching for next week in preparation for Coyote versus Acme.
Yeah.
And there's some fun stuff coming up. We got the Dog Stars
Yeah.
and different things that are coming out down the stretch before Doomsday and Dune. So
Mhm.
stay tuned on the channel. Subscribe to stay, up to date on what we're doing, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you later.